see how it goes. Do this. Make sure it's working. Real quick. Alright, looks like that is too loud. How can I change the settings on this? Suppose I can turn game audio down.
Some hunters are trying to stake out a roof. Hey, need a dance partner? I've been waiting.
It's still kind of loud. Or maybe this is only changing on my TV. I can't tell. Or Right. I'm not sure how this is actually sound. Oh, okay. I can hear myself okay. This is very difficult to figure out. Okay, so I have. It's also weird because I'm listening to this on my phone while I do this, so I can hear myself. All right, just gonna share this now that it is working. Okay. So, I don't know if anybody will show up, but if anybody is currently here and would like to say hi, then go ahead.
I nearly hit somebody. I better do something. Hey guys, can you drop yourselves off at the nearest...
Don't really have anything particular to talk about in this, so... I'm stop listening to myself because otherwise I'm gonna just get really confused. So, so hopefully this continues to work.
What a mess these guys made.
Oh, stupid old rooms. Oh, no. Ah, hit 6, yes. It is very fun. This is Spider-Man among many other games. Or I guess not many other games, but the Spider-Man games have always been ones that I just play just to play them. I mean, I know a lot of people complain about like Spider-Man 2, and there's not a whole lot to really spend your time on. Like you play it once and you're done with it. But I have put a lot of hours into this game just doing random stuff. So it's a lot of fun. Even some of the old Spider-Man games do the same thing. It's just kind of what I do to just kind of decompress and chill for a while. Did not know they were there. Yeah, I was looking at recently my hours in these games. First game I have like 180. Miles Morales. Oh my goodness. I have probably about one. I'm trying to remember. So it was split up between the two versions. Probably about the same, probably 150 or so, or a little more. And in this, I've already got like 140, so I just play this all the time. I'm doing terribly. This is the easiest crime, and I'm doing horribly at it. There we go. Curious if you've played any of the other older Spider-Man games, because those were the same way for me. Like I know that a lot of people did not like it, but I used to spend a lot of time playing the Wii version of Spider-Man 3, just constantly. I probably had 200 hours minimum in that game, just doing random stuff. I did that a lot in Web of Shadows as well. Always been a big fan of the Spider-Man games.
Gas truck could blow at any second. Let's all cool down for a bit.
He's up there! Spider-Man's up there! Your last hour will be crimson!
Spider-Man! Don't worry. I'll get you to an ambulance in no time. You're amazing. Thank you. We're almost there. Sorry. And there we are. Pros will take it from here. I can't thank
It's
you
not showing me
enough.
the full message, so I can
Also,
look at my phone
my
for this.
boyfriend's your biggest fan.
Oh yeah, I would. They're not easy to get a hold of the old ones, but I would recommend checking them out sometime if you can. But yeah, I have thoroughly enjoyed all three of these ones. It's hard for me to pick a favorite one. I tend to go for gameplay over everything else, so in that sense, this one is probably my favorite. But the first one probably has the better story. Although, I think this one could have had the better story if it had just been handled a little bit better.
Hope I'm not intruding. Never. Let's do this.
I will say one thing I think that, oddly enough, Miles Morales does the best, I think, is the crimes. By far. Not that the ones in the first game and this one aren't good, but the dynamic crimes in the Miles Morales game were amazing.
We should take this on the road sometime. Sounds like a good excuse to finally
The
build that Spider-Mobile.
like the hacking and the planes flying around and the fights in the streets and everything. Granted, you have stuff like the fighting in the streets in this one, but I don't know. I liked him better in the other one for some reason.
Is that a weapons deal going down? You don't do that. Hate to interrupt the business meeting, but wait, no, I don't. That was just bad business all around.
Oh yeah, I I'm glad that they updated Peter's animations in this game, but I like Miles is better. Like he's just got I like his style. Very kind of what's the word? Kind of amateurish, kind of like, you know, flailing around a bit trying to figure it out, but I enjoy that about the way that he looks. Yes, definitely.
Symbiotes. Can't let those people get hurt.
Although I kind of wish that they had done more with him in this one. Just purely, I mean, in general, really. But especially in terms of his animations and stuff. Peter, they gave a lot of new stuff. Not quite so much with Miles, which his stuff is already good, but I wish they'd added a little more. Wish they did some more with him in general. I really liked his part of the game, but I didn't feel like there was enough of it. Kind of a background character for a lot of the game, which is unfortunate.
That's all of them. I'm so tired.
I've wondered that too. I would imagine there's going to be some kind of another spin-off before the third game. I know there were rumors and things of a Venom game, which could happen. I don't know how they'd handle that, but it could happen. I personally, if I were to choose one more spin-off for them to do in between, I would like to see, kind of like the Batman Arkham games did, do an Origins game, which, as much as we've seen the origins of Spider-Man plenty of times in not just games but media in general, I think it would be cool to get Insomniac's take on his origin. But we'll see what they do with that. I would be cool with a Venom game too. I'm just not sure how they'd actually make that work.
Hunters must have stopped for a resupply.
We are here as long as we need. Why is
Yes,
that?
it was a lot of fun to play Venom. Um, it I didn't enjoy it as much the second time around, though. Weirdly enough, when I went back to replay it on New Game Plus,
You go.
I think it was really fun. It just because it was only for one section, there wasn't a lot to it. But I think it would be a lot of fun if they expanded on it in like a spin-off or something. But it was definitely cool the first time playing it.
Moving day? Hope you're leaving my city.
I think it'd be interesting to see how they could handle the open world with Venom, because I feel like he would. You could maybe have some form of web swinging with him, but I feel like it would be almost more of like a Hulk-like movement where you're kind of jumping across the place or something. Hi, Alex. I get that reference. Yeah, it would be a good opportunity for them to do something different.
Next time, go with a
Because
reliable
as much as I enjoy playing as Miles and Peter, they do play mostly pretty similarly. So getting something different with like Venom would be cool. Speaking of Miles, let's play with Miles for a bit. Best Miles suit in the game, by the way.
Moving on.
At least one of the best. I am very glad they kept it from his game. Although, I also really like the end suit, but it doesn't look as good with the wings, so I don't use it much. Which is unfortunate, because I used that suit all the time in his game.
Careful where you point that thing.
That was useless. There's nobody even there. There. I don't play as Miles much, so I'm so used to using all of Peter's abilities that are completely different.
What the hell is wrong with these people?
By the way, Alex, I unfortunately did not read any more of A Time to Kill last night, so you may shame me. I read something else instead. That's another good one that I could use. I have grown quite fond of this one. It feels weird to use a Black Panther suit, but it does look very cool. Oh, Salem's Lot, so good. I haven't heard much about the movie as far as I think I've seen it's gotten some mixed reviews, but from the trailer it looked kind of cool. I have not seen any Stephen King movies in general, so I haven't seen the original, but um, it is a great book, so it's definitely worthy of getting an adaptation. Although, weirdly enough, I've read, let's see, I think 3 Stephen King books, and as much as I loved Salem's Lot, it is probably my least favorite of the 3.
never have to worry about my camouflage glitching out.
So I read Salem's Lot last October. I read Carrie this spring, which I loved. And I read Revival in July, which I also loved. Carrie and Revival kind of fight for my favorite. I really liked both of them. And then next month, I'm going to be reading another Stephen King book, which I suppose I can give a little hint of. My video on that hasn't come out yet, but I will be reading Misery next month, which is very exciting. And I have a few other ones. I recently got a few more of his books, which is cool.
Get away from them.
He's become one of those authors that I really want to get into. I really, really want to get, well, several of his books, but I really want to get Pet Sematary.
They're gone for good.
But every time I've gone to my local bookstore, they have not had it recently. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them I want to read. I also have The Stand, and I got Misery recently, and then I also got The Outsider, and one other one. What was the other one? The Shining. That's another one I've been wanting for a while. So, and I really want to get It and Pet Sematary. Those are like the next two that I really want. So we'll see if I can get them. And I'm thinking once I've read those, and once I've read The Stand, and maybe a couple other ones, then I will get started on Dark Tower, which I'm very excited to get into. Ah, that was terrible. Yes, I am very excited to read Dark Tower because I've heard from a lot of people, and just from some of the little bits I've heard, it sounds really different. And I also just love Stephen King's style, so those two things combined make me very excited. Plus, actually, weirdly enough, the fact that the ending is so controversial also makes me excited because I really want to see what side I fall on as far as whether it was good or bad. Um, for some reason, even though you would think a controversial ending would make me less likely to read something, it actually kind of makes me more excited because I want to see what all the controversy is about. I really want to read the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks for the same reason. That ending is very controversial, and I really want to read it because of that. In addition to several other reasons, but that's one big reason. Switch back to Peter. I like Peter's suit selection a bit better. So we gonna go for? Go for this one. This is my go-to. Is the advanced suit with the black. Yeah, a lot of people on YouTube that I know, as well as a couple of friends of mine who have read it, did like the ending. But I also know a couple people who hated it. So it's very interesting to me how diverse is the wrong. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Just how different the opinions are on that.
Someone's getting beat up over there. Not on my watch. Here we
Was
go.
wondering when you'd show up.
Come on! You know I love a dramatic entrance! I hope you didn't need this!
That was faster than I expected.
Thanks. I think.
Trying to think if there's any. Red Rising, I have not yet. I really want to. I do know there is at least one bookstore around here that has had it the last time I was there, but I don't go there very much. And my preferred bookstore never has it, so we'll see if I can get it. But I really want to sometime because I've heard really good things about it. There's a lot of series like that I really want to get into, but I just have not been able to quite yet.
Don't worry, everyone! I'll get you out of this! So, exactly how cramped was it in there? Please, don't leave me! Don't worry. I'll get you to an ambulance in no time. Oh my god. Thank you.
By the way, love the symbiote suit in this game. Yes, that has actually. I've been rereading a lot of books this year, and that's been,
We're almost there.
for some, not all of them, but for some of them, like the reread can be super rewarding.
Pros will take it
All the
from here.
things you pick up. Like, I recently finished rereading the Mistborn trilogy, and there are so many things that I did not pick up on the first time that reading it the second time is just so cool. So, but yes, I do really want to read Red Rising. I think that would be a lot of fun. I've heard many good things. And it's one of the with a lot of series, I tend to hear a lot of like, there's some really good books, but there's like those one or two bad ones, and I haven't really heard that with Red Rising. I've heard some people think I think it's the first one is not as good, but often it's still pretty positive. Um, and I would highly recommend Sanderson, by the way. He is my favorite. As much of a cliche of it is as it is to say, he is my favorite. Um, he's done a lot of good stuff. I'm hoping I can get my hands on the newest Mistborn book here soon, because the mass market paperback for it just came out, and I thought it wasn't coming out for another few weeks. So, and all my other books in the series are mass markets, and I didn't want them to not match. So I was specifically waiting until that came out to get it.
That couple's being attacked. Better hurry. Hope you don't mind me interrupting here. Stop fighting us! Streets are just a little bit safer now, thanks to Spider-Man.
I've heard to start with Elantris. I think Elantris is a fine start. It's not what I would recommend, mostly because most Sanderson fans, myself included, count it as one of his weakest books. It's still good, and in fact, I did say it's still great. I haven't read a Sanderson book that I'd give under like an 8 out of 10. But I don't think it's as good as some of his other ones. But I do actually I have a video with some recommendations, but my quick thoughts would be, if you want a standalone, go for Warbreaker. If you want a little more than a standalone, go for Mistborn. Which the good thing about Mistborn is if you don't like it, the first book has a full... It sets up more for the future, but it can work as a standalone if you just want to read the first one. But that's a trilogy, and also a full series. But yeah, Mistborn is good if you want something a little bit more than one book. And if you are fully comfortable with giant epic fantasy books, then go for Stormlight Archive. But my general recommendation would be Mistborn as the absolute best starting point. But you can really start with just about anything. Like, even though Elantris, I think, isn't his best book, it's still a fine starting point. And Mistborn, the first era of Mistborn, is a good starting point. Stormlight is a good starting point. I wouldn't recommend starting with Mistborn Era 2, which is the most recent sub-series for Mistborn. But you theoretically could, but I just wouldn't recommend doing so. Oh, and there's the secret projects as well, which Tress of the Emerald Sea and Yumi and the Nightmare Painter would also make decent starters, but I haven't read The Sunlit Man yet. I've heard that is definitely not a good starting point. But I haven't read it yet, so I can't say for myself. But long story short, Warbreaker or Mistborn would be my recommendations, with Stormlight if you're comfortable with giant 1,200-page books. Yes, he does write a lot. He writes so much. you don't have to worry about Sanderson being like someone like George Martin and not finish his series because he writes all the time. I'm not sure if you caught his secret project campaign a couple years ago, but he just wrote 4 books without anybody knowing during COVID. So he cannot stop writing, and it's great because there's always something new to look forward to. But it's also like if you're a slower reader, I'd imagine it would be hard to keep track of everything because there's just so much coming out. And then there's his non-fantasy stuff, which I haven't even started yet. All the recommendations I gave you are just his fantasy books. But he also has like the Skyward series and the Reckoners and all this other stuff, which I haven't read yet, but I have also heard is good. So, um, yeah. Although I did recently get the first Reckoners book, so we'll see if I read that at some point. I mean, I will read it at some point. It's just I don't know when. No, he's done some other stuff. He's mostly known for his fantasy, which mostly takes place in his interconnected universe, which is called the Cosmere, um, which is why so many people give so many recommendations, because they're not super deeply interconnected at this point, but they will become that way. So it's basically all of his various standalones and series that are fantasy um, all take place on different planets in the same dwarf galaxy or whatever it's called. But he has some other stuff too. He has Skyward, which seems to be like a young adult science fiction. He has Reckoners, which I don't know much about, but it seems kind of like superhero-ish, kind of, is what I've heard. Um, he's got, let's see, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, which is like a middle grade. Don't know what that would be classified as either, but it's like a middle grade series. So he's mostly known for fantasy, but he does some other stuff here and there. And even his fantasy series, like Mistborn, eventually will become more sci-fi as it goes along, um, because it's split into a bunch of time periods. So the later time periods will be like space opera type stuff, which is going to be really cool.
That car does not care for traffic laws. Go, go, go! One of the Spider-Men's onto us! Flip it, Spider-Man! I freaking hate you! And done. You guys have any idea how much property damage you just caused?
Yeah, I've heard good things about Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I have not read that one either yet, but I've heard good things. I still need to get more into classic fantasy in general, because all I've really read that classifies as classic fantasy is like Tolkien and Narnia. Yes, there are a lot.
Need to stop those hunters before someone gets hurt. There are easier ways to get my attention, you know.
By the way, if you're interested and haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend going and looking at some of the stuff that the Broken Binding has been doing recently for their special editions, because they're doing a special edition of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and their cover for Dragonbone Chair is amazing. Like, that alone makes me want to read that trilogy, which is funny to me. Uh, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I just got back into books a few years ago now, so there's still a lot I haven't read. Um, but yeah, it's been fun so far. But it definitely gets to a point when there's so much to choose from, and you wonder if you'll ever get to it all. I haven't done great mixing in classics. I've read some older stuff. Um, yes, they do good stuff. I don't have any of their books, but I have seen a lot of them, and yeah, they're great. Um, yeah, like I said, I've read Tolkien, I've read Narnia. If we go out of fantasy, I've read a lot of H.P. Lovecraft. I've read probably at least 90% of his stuff. Um, if you count Wheel of Time as classic fantasy, I've read the first three books. Um, although that's kind of between modern and classic fantasy, but I have bought a few more classic fantasy books recently, um, but I haven't read those yet. And they're also not like the big heavy hitters either. They're just kind of ones that I found randomly.
Classes with your outfit.
On to the next one.
I'm always around if you need some help.
Let's change it up again. Of course, personal favorite, the Raimi suit. Or maybe not number one personal favorite, but a personal favorite. Hard to pick a favorite. Oh, well, thank you for checking out Star Wars stuff. The Bane trilogy is great, and I'm sure you will be happy to hear I'm actually going to be rereading the first book next month. So I'm going to end off the year rereading that whole trilogy, which I am very excited about. I read those a few years ago, and they were great. So, and I've read a lot of other Star Wars since then, and at the time they were like my favorite. So I want to see if they still hold up the same way. I think it'll be fun too because I read Darth Plagueis again earlier this year, and that tied in quite a bit too. So it'll be fun to kind of that book discusses Darth Bane a lot, so it'll be fun to kind of refresh my memory on some of those things. Plagueis is next. Nice. I think I read that pretty soon after I read Darth Bane, so it's Plagueis. It's not like a sequel to the Darth Bane trilogy, but I think it is best read soon after because not only does it talk about a lot of things that are directly from the Bane books, but thematically they are very similar because they're both Sith. So it's a very good pairing. Sometime soon I gotta get my hands on the Legacy of the Force books because I finished New Jedi Order recently. So that's the next big series that's up. I also need to get caught up on the High Republic because the last book in that series just got its release date announced. I'm gonna try to get caught up before it comes out, but I don't know if I can.
Head enforcement here. You're in violation of several ordinances.
I do read quite a bit, not as much as I'd like. I enjoy most of the current canon stuff in general, whether that's the shows or the books or whatever. But I don't read as many of the books as I'd like to. I tend to prefer the EU, so that's what I spend most of my time on. But I am gonna try to get more caught up on the current stuff as well. Right now, sometime soon, I'm planning to do the Battlefront books, and then also get try to get caught up on High Republic. Right now, for that, I have to read Path of Vengeance, And then I can get started on Phase 3 of High Republic, which will be exciting. I'm very behind on that series. But yeah, so I want to read more of it. I just don't often get around to it. I'm getting that glitch where sometimes the random crimes despawn. It's really annoying. But yes, I do read quite a bit of it, but just not as much. Um, for context, I've read probably about 40 to 50% of the EU, and I probably own about 55 or 60%, I would guess. Whereas the current canon, I've probably read less than a quarter of the books. I think I've only read 15 or 20 total of the canon books, which they have, I think, like 40 or 45 adult books, and probably a good couple dozen young adult books, at least. So I definitely need to get caught up. I have not read those yet. I would like to. Um, Unfortunately, one of the sadly major factors for me in terms of what I do or don't read is the price of books. And oftentimes, the from a certain point of view books tend to run a little more expensive because they're big, and usually are the big trade paperbacks or the hardcovers. Whereas a lot of the reason I read more of the EU also is because I tend to just find them cheaper. Um, but I would still like to read those sometime because I do enjoy short stories, and I think that the idea of those books is really cool. So eventually I will read them. I just have not done so yet. I also really need to get the Thrawn Ascendancy books. As far as the current canon stuff, those are high on the priority list because I love all of Timothy Zahn's books that I've read. Well, I'd say all but one, and even that one was still just okay. So, and I did really like the first canon Thrawn trilogy. Curious if they'll bring him back for another one. I know a lot of people want to see Eli Vanto books or Thrawn between Rebels and Ahsoka or something. Yes, he's great. I actually liked him better in the canon books than the Legends books. As much as I did love him in the Legends books, I like that the canon trilogy gave him more, like, you got more of who he was as a character, which was cool. So hopefully we'll see him again in some new books sometime. Oh my goodness, what was that?
That's a roadblock, all right.
He took the bait. Don't let him get away with that.
For me, you shouldn't have.
It always amuses me how he just floats in the air when you do stuff.
Take him down. Dodge this.
Never knew levitation was one of Spider-Man's superpowers.
Those hunters are gonna get no more hunters. No more hunters.
It looks like there are also some cool Star Wars books coming out next year too, which I'm looking forward to. In addition to High Republic, there's a new trilogy getting started, which is really cool. That I'm excited to see. And then a couple Acolyte books, which, as controversial as the Acolyte was, I'm glad to see that they're continuing it in some form, at least. Well, it's not really continuing it, but doing material connected to it. I'm sure we'll get some more book announcements sometime too. I think Comic Con's coming up soon. I wonder if there will be anything there. Yes, for sure. I personally was a big fan of the Acolyte, which I know is not the popular opinion. Um, but so I'll be very sad if, as what has been reported, if it is actually canceled and they're not doing a season 2. But maybe they'll be continuing it in books or comics. As long as they continue it in some way, then I'd be happy with that. Because books and comics are not gonna be quite as expensive as that show was. Ah, it's happening again. Everything's disappearing on me. Yes, I did enjoy. I assume you're talking about the show Kenobi. Although, in either case, whether it's the book or the show, I enjoyed both. Although, as I think about it, I think, as far as the live action shows, because unfortunately, I am not caught up on the animated stuff. But as far as the live action shows, it's probably my least favorite one. But I still think it was pretty good. I enjoyed it quite a bit as it came out. And I need to look at that on my phone because it's not working. Yes, the book Kenobi is amazing. I think, at least. But yeah, the show was good. I enjoyed it. Um, Although I have not watched any of the shows since they came out because I'm just not much of a TV and movie person most of the time. The only time I really watch movies or shows is if I'm watching them with my wife, and she usually is not watching Star Wars with me. So probably next time I do a full watch through of the movies, I will include the new shows in it, the live action shows. Oh yeah, Vader was good in that show for sure.
Why try when you've already
It was, and also, it's just great to see Hayden and Ewan again. Yeah. I should have used that to heal. For some reason, I didn't. Because I'm an idiot.
City will come clean this up.
Speaking of being good to see people again, I also loved Book of Boba Fett for the same reason. Which, as a show, I didn't quite enjoy as much. That one and Kenobi kind of fight for my least favorite. I think Kenobi's probably better, but Boba Fett was more memorable to me, so it's kind of weird. But I love seeing Tamora Morrison again, and it pains me significantly that they are not bringing him back for like more seasons of The Mandalorian or the movie or anything. I hope they decide to, and like if they change plans, I hope they bring him back for the movie or something like that because he's just great.
That's enough fire for today. Where'd those symbiotes come from?
Ah,
We
crap.
got it, members.
You would think, as much as I've played this game and everything, that I would not die for stupid reasons. But sometimes I just end up being bad. Going an hour, holy cow. I did not realize I'd been streaming so long. My favorite thing that happens sometimes when I do something really dumb is I go to do like this, do the loop-de-loop, and I do have it set so I don't have the swing assist all the way down because it's just It's not quite as smooth as I like it to be, but I do have fall damage turned on. So if you do the loop-de-loop just wrong enough, and you just face plant into the top of a building, it is hysterical.
Those people can't fight off symbiotes on their own. That's right. Focus on the big, loud Spider-Man.
These guys often are the ones that end up killing me the most. But I was able to get them. What? That's interesting.
Don't worry. I'll get you to an ambulance in no time.
I have run into very, very few glitches with this game, so that was a first.
We're almost there. There. You're all set. And I hope the worst is over now. Bless you, Spider-Man.
Sunset. Oh, sunset. Also, I'm very glad that in that update a while back they let you change the time of day, which is very nice. Wish they'd add weather options, but oh well. That was one thing I loved in Miles Morales was the different snow options. So it was very cool. Ugh. Well, I think I might shut it down for today. Gotta go do some laundry and probably should eat something. But
Excuse me.
thank you for coming and hanging out for a bit. It's been fun. I don't know. I haven't been able to do streams very much, so I don't know when the next time I can do one will be. But we'll see. So yeah, thanks for coming. It's been fun. I'll see you around.